12:30. That means Indiecade East 2016 conference is now underway.
Video games.
We're going to kick things off. Sorry. My name's Jenny Robinson Faber. I'm one of the conference co-chairs along with Henry Faber, no relation. That's not true. We're going to kick things off today with two lightning talks, so two 15-minute talks from Yifat Shaik and Charles Babb. So get on up here and let's lightning our way through these. Aha! Wow, this is dark. So I'm going to speak really, really quickly because I have way too many stuff to say, only 15 minutes to say. Just a quick introduction. I wrote a while ago this piece. I have really loud voice, so I always get to avoid. I wrote this piece about subversive humor in games, and I'm not going to go over that particular piece, so I'm going to make a few points, but and I have in the end of the slide where you can find the talk. It's in also in Gamma Sutra. So, but I gave this. I wrote this article about how games don't really use humor that much, and they certainly don't use subversive humor that much. And a while ago, I started making this game about my army experience, and again, I'll talk about it a lot more. And sort of combine the two notions because the game has a lot of the sort of weird humor stuff that is interesting. So my name is Yifat, and I'm here to tell you how I use subversive humor to make a game about the mundanity of serving in the army. I also am going to say certain stuff not correctly. I'm sorry in advance. Blame it on the accent. So a little bit about myself. This is where I grew up. I grew up in Jerusalem, kind of a weird place. You might have heard about it. It's in the news sometimes. And at the age of 18, I served 2 years in the army. I'm sorry, all my pictures are at my parents' house, and my parents are in Japan right now, so I couldn't get. So I did this amazing Photoshop job. Israel has mandatory army service, and aside from the political issue of it all, and obviously I've been through, I'm in my 30s now, so my opinions of stuff have changed a lot since I was 18, but I did have to do my mandatory army service, and my mandatory army service was, I served in a computer unit in the army. So my army service wasn't exactly the most exciting thing you ever had. And now I live in Canada. In Toronto, as we all thought. I came here, the first song I've heard coming to New York was Drake. And I started giggling, because I think you get arrested in Canada if you say something against Drake. It's just a thing. It's part of the citizenship test right now, I came to Canada, and in Israel I'm not anything special. I grew up in Jerusalem. Jerusalem has million people. I served in the army. Everyone who's Jewish has to serve in the army in Israel. And that's you have ways to get out, but when I was 18, I wasn't exactly particularly politically savvy about it. And so when I started talking to people in Canada, they're like, "Oh my God, you've served in the army. Do you know Krav Maga?" I do not know Krav Maga. Have you fired a weapon? Yes, once. Oh, you grew up in Jerusalem, so did you go to the Wailing Wall every day, or did you go to mosque? No, I lived in West. My parents live in West South Jerusalem. It's super not secular area of Jerusalem, and you don't go to areas certain areas in Jerusalem without. So I figured out that my life experience has been so different than people in Canada specifically, but in North America in general. So I'll get to it again, but I want to talk a little bit about about humor and specifically about subversive humor. So subversive is basically talks about typically trying to ruin or destroy a government, political system, or do a subversive activity. And when you talk about humor, it's about criticizing something in a clever and indirect way in order to make it weaker or less effective. And so a lot of stuff like satire is very common, surreal humor, Monty Python has a lot of very subversive stuff, Mel Brooks, so in the same of terms, subversive humor is humor which criticizes powerful dogma, concept, or institution. Subversive humor often functions as a tool to express frustration, dissident, and to ultimately challenge existing power relations and convictions. So, the whole point of subversive humor, and it comes in all forms, so again, satire, you have what's called ethnic humor, which I hate the term, but it's mostly refers to, it used to be a lot of Jewish humor, black, like African-American, feminist humor, sort of humor that goes and challenges a lot of the sort of dogmas around the particular environment we live in. So, for example, Dave Chappelle, Mel Brooks is a very good example of ethnic humor. And of course, satire, we all know satire, so Jon Stewart and alike, and dark, like a lot of British humor, dark humor, very surreal humor, so Monty Python does a very subversive humor. I'm talking about pop culture, Blackadder, which I will mention again, Charlie Chaplin stuff are very subversive, so it's a very particular type of humor. So why subversive humor? Subversive, oh man, I have this weirdness going on. So, okay, so subversive humor, why is it important? It kind of deletes the clutter and the noise around issues that make people feel uncomfortable. It's very approachable. Like if you criticize something in a funny way, people who don't necessarily feel connected to it might feel a little bit more comfortable. It's a way to ridicule the oppressed by creating, okay, I have this weird stuff. It's a way to ridicule the oppressor and give it a way to melt the fear of the people ridiculing the person, and also help like avoid, like when you ridicule something in a subversive way, you're sort of making this person sort of not being able to answer you without being part of the ridicule. So if you are familiar with stuff like Clown Army and stuff like that, there's political actions that use humor to create something, to ridicule usually dictators and stuff like that. So last thing in the humor stuff, there's what's called theory and humor. I won't get into it. Again, there's the paper, you can read it if you really want to. But my favorite, one of the thing I'm going to talk about, so I'm going to mention, it's the incongruity theory. Which means it's a theory that says that humor comes from taking two stuff that are not connected and put them together. I read a paper about it when I wrote the paper, and it says like pun is the lowest form of humor, and I made fun of Henry because of that. So, but that's just so. For example, in games, if you take something like Octodad, it's incongruous because you have this like weird octopus character, but is in a perfectly normal situation, and the humor comes from having this weird thing in a perfectly normal situation. Goat Simulator does the same thing, but I don't know. So why are games not funny? It's hard to pinpoint the exact reason why there is so many difficult creating funny games. There are three reasons why I pinpointed. So one of them is, I don't know what's happening with my notes. The fact that games are repetitive makes it really hard to continue making funny, continuing having a thing be funny. The other thing is that we tend to like have all the it's really hard to predict how the player will play the game and how we make it funny. And also video games tend to be very heroic and like, let's say whatever, and it doesn't really work well with humor, at least that's what people think. So last thing, the way in which games incorporate humor and subversive, using text and visuals. So I use an example of adventure games. They use a lot of like puns and text puns or visual puns. So they keep the humor on the top level, and it doesn't go to the mechanics. There is the using the game interaction, the mechanics. So I give examples, Goat Simulator. If you take out the goat in Goat Simulator, the game is still funny. Because the humor in Goat Simulator or Octodad, something like that, comes from the weird physics and the fact that it subverts the idea of failure. And again, read the paper, it's all there. And the all-rounder, which has everything, that doesn't exist. I suspect it does exist, which is Undertale, but I haven't played enough Undertale to tell you. So, real-life absurdity. So, as I said, I came to Canada, going back, I came to Canada and I was like, okay, no one here had my life experience. And so and not only that, like, games, it just came out and I had to put it because it's hilarious. So, Call of Duty, our, like, knowledge in North America, 90% of the time comes from games. And games don't present a realistic view of the army. Movies don't present a realistic view of the army. Some movies do, and I will show you, but this is not real. Not only that, it's kind of offensive, the infinite, and I think a lot of people make fun of it, but none of it is real. My experience in the army, and even people who are fighters, I know people who fought in the army, this is not real experience. So this is the real story. The army is a large and slow corporate machine. I went home every day. I fixed computers. I was in a computer help desk. It was boring. It was mundane. There was these tiny, tiny, constant rules that you have to follow all the time. This is a better representation of what an army is than something like Call of Duty. And even like people who are, again, I have friends who fought in wars and stuff like that. They will, they will tell you about like sitting in ambush for 30 hours. And singing songs because there's nothing to do. They'll tell you about the weird like guard duty stuff. They won't tell you so much. There is a price to pay for killing someone. There is a price to pay on being in a war situation. And they will tell you about the small little stuff, the mundane stuff where like an officer decides that today everyone's shoes has to be clean. And you can't do anything about it. And the reason why it exists is because it's a way to keep everyone in line. And if you listen to Serial, the season 2 of Serial, they talk about, one of the things they do talk about is like how this guy didn't fit. They couldn't handle the rules. And I've seen guys like that, or women like that. You cannot deal with this stupid like little stuff. So I made a game about, I started making a game about the army, and it sort of morphed into something really, really funny because the mundane is funny. Comedy likes to highlight the absurd in reality. So this is from Blackadder, season 4 of Blackadder, and there's which is one of my favorite shows because it really presents like how it really is. And there's like this part where he puts like he tries to get out of the army, and he puts these things in his like he tries to make it seem like he's crazy. So I know people who've done that. This is far more realistic than a lot of other stuff we see. So I use Subversive Humor to highlight the mundane. This is from an Israeli movie. I can't remember the name right now. It's really recommended because it does the same. It's my army service. This is like, this girl's job is to shred paper. This is our army job, and there are people who do that. So I made this game, and every other choice in the game was made to subvert the idea of the army. And again, I'm going back to incongruity. I chose to make the game pink. When I show it around, I have like a pink tablecloth, like bright pink tablecloth. I made it all like soft and like clean and boring, and nothing like completely different from, again, any other military game, because I wanted to make, part of the humor is to avoid everything. My trailer, I made a new trailer, makes fun of our concept of the army. So everything goes back to the incongruity of it all. At 1 minute, right? Okay, so just to add, this is me, Yifat Shaik. This is my Twitter if you want to follow. My company, together with my business partner, the Really Serious Game Company. This is the website. You can read, there's 3 episodes right now. We just had episode 3, so you can play the game. I will also be on Saturday showing it, so if anyone wants. And there's the original in my website. It's called Subversive Humor in Games. You can also read it in Gamma Sutra. Yeah. I know really fast. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. During my talk, I was going over my slides actually last night, and I realized I had another talk in my slides. And I'll let you all have a choice in this, because this is the game part. Do you want the normal talk I was going to give about verbs and finding game mechanics and everyday things? Or do you want the talk where I talk about being an independent developer in the world of published games? It's more sarcastic, a little bit subversive, and very satirical. Which do you want to have? So for the first talk, talk A, the normal talk I was going to do, raise your hand. Talk 2, the other one. I will talk about game mechanics in that one too. We'll do both of them. So I'm going to do talk 2 because it just came to me as I was going over my slides last night. And I think it was something in my subconscious that made me arrange the slides the way I did. So we're all here because of this guy. You know, we all want to make games, and he has one of the best game philosophies of all times. Look at what you're doing in real life and try to put it into a game in some form or fashion, you know, and work on it and hone it until it is fun. That means like watching flowers grow. We all play that game. We all play Pikmin. And right now I'm about to enter a time trial. That's what I'm doing right now. This is a game we're playing. And so, as an independent gamer, you didn't just stand there, you got up and started doing something. And usually you just started doing something because you got tired of seeing sequels. August 1, Opera 2, August Opera 3, August Opera 4, you just got tired of seeing sequels. Or you couldn't get into the industry because of the old guard. Somebody sitting at the gate, you have to know somebody, know somebody, know somebody at every studio you're going into to get in. You have to play that game too, right? The game of knowing things and knowing someone. And you know, it's very stealth-like on how to get into the proper gaming industry as they want to deem it, the published games. But we did our research. We figured that we're going to start our own games and figure things out. And we started mapping our own course. We all jumped out there like, hey, I got Unity, I got Unreal, I got a nice powerful PC I put together. I got some friends, everybody thinks this is a good idea. Hell yeah, I'm going to make me a game. So you got your tools together. You know, you got your Wacom tablet you bought off eBay or from a friend that handed you down. You got the ingredients together, had the right team members, you put them all together in one place. And you were bold. You sat on the edge and you took your first step. You got down the computer and your gentleman or your lady gear and you said, hey, we're going to make a game. And you looked around the room of people that smell like GameStop and say, rock on, we're all making games. But then you start thinking about what game am I really making? And you're looking for that spark. And it's hard to find that spark. And then you're like, you know what? I need a little peace and quiet because this room right now, I'm getting distracted from everybody else's great idea that's going to change all the gaming. So I sat down in solitude to work on my game. But then it started falling apart. We evolved in there. We seen our games fall apart and we got lost in it. We got caught in the fog of our own ideas in our mind and we started to drown. And all we wanted to do was get away to somewhere peaceful, quiet like a beach. We thought the world was too crowded with ideas similar to ours and yet it felt completely empty at the same exact time. and we start falling into a moment of darkness. Then we said, hey, why don't I go back and just get a normal job at a studio or a publisher and do something with them? And all through this, you've been playing the game with yourself. And we don't even realize we've been playing the game with ourselves. It's the imposter game. And a lot of us fall into it, and a lot of us need to come out of it. Everybody has a great idea, and you were right that first time when you had that first spark. And then your friends look at you all funny. Like, what are you doing? I thought you were going to make your own game. Or what are you doing? I thought you were going to actually be part of a studio. You're supposed to be the next Miyamoto. That's what they keep telling us. Then your frenemies look at you and they're ready to eat you alive, right? Those are all people that doubted you, and you paid them too much attention. They're like the little minion guys in Metal Gear Solid, the new one, and you pay them too much attention because you don't want to kill them. You want to numb them all to make sure you get the hostage out. And the only thing that's important is you can run into the building, grab the hostage, and shoot your way out. Sure, it makes the game a little bit more boring, but it gets the job done. And that's who your frenemies are. Those little minions that walk around, that say, hey, I hear something, and you run away the moment they come towards you. Then you start thinking about all your old childhood dreams and how broken they are. All those game ideas you had thinking of when you were a child. But the easy thing about being a game designer, when something's broken, guess what we do? We fix it. That's the game. We start crafting. And we don't realize we're crafting. Instead, we wait for the next train of thought to come along. And life keeps passing by us at the speed of light, and we don't take the time to actually grab on one of those light rails and ride with it. We start getting nostalgic. We start putting in Smash Brothers, Mario Brothers, just trying to find our way around. And none of our great ideas are in our old dreams. They're in our new dreams. And we just have to find those dreams. It's a puzzle. It's like Tetris. You don't know it's falling from the sky. You just put it in the right place and it works. And but we want to curl up, we want to get love from people, we want people to hug over us and everything, but everybody's just like us. Everybody in this room here is a game developer. We're all trying to go to new heights. There's one of us in every one of these balloons. And the world is a lot smaller from when you're staring down below it. And sometimes that's the best place to be, because you can be caught up in your thoughts, and you should be, because that's where you can go play. And you take everything you do, like I was saying, game mechanics, everything you do in life, and you put it together and play with it. Swing is a physics game. How do you make physics work? Going down a slide is a physics game. And you figure it out. It's an engine. Everything around us in life is basically a game, and we're trying to definitely figure it out. And so from time to time, go catch a moment of awe. Leave the keyboard alone, walk away from everything that you're familiar with and go see something that you're not familiar with. This is definitely in Utah. And I tell everybody, go see the Big Five. Go see it. There's times that I've taken some of my dev members out to go see it because we're doing a rock climbing game in the Oculus, and I do a lot of VR development now, you know. Instead of waiting for that next train of thought, just go run it. There's no reason for you to not run. Running does a couple of things. It gives us orientation, and try to picture yourself running from a third-person camera. Because a lot of problems in games are the camera work. So when you go run around the block, run around your neighborhood, you'll run into different things. And imagine being the camera. Play with perspective. Run outside yourself. You know, go dancing. Dancing is the best way to learn about animation. A lot of people don't realize that. I worked on a fighting game. I took everybody to dance classes. We went to swing classes. We went to salsa classes. Because when you play in a fighting game, it's a dance. And you just have to figure it out. When you're playing Madden football is one of the best fighting games ever made. It's 11 versus 11. And it's a fighting game. Like, you have dive, you can throw stiff arms. It's great. It's great. And this is the best way to learn how to create your animations and create your AI, is to dance. Because when you're dancing, if you're the leader, you're the follow, you're actually working with somebody else, which is you consider that an AI. And you can learn a lot from that. So next time you're working on your game and you're looking for some guidance, get a different perspective, and the universe will be yours. And at the end of the day, we're just making games. We're not curing cancer here. We're just making people happy. And the easiest thing that we can ever do is figure a way to make people happy. Curing cancer is saving lives. That's making somebody feel great. We're just trying to make you just happy. And I like to usually close my talks out with Jerry Lawson. Does anybody know who Jerry Lawson is? He's the father of the video game cartridge. He created the first video game console. And I like closing out with Jerry because Jerry's what I call an alicorn. He has like everything. He's a designer, engineer, artist. He does everything. He was one of Steve Jobs' confidants and Steve Wozniak's confidants. He's no longer with us, but it was him that worked with Fairchild Semiconductor to say, hey, I can create a machine where you don't have to have a video game cabinet and everybody can have it in their house. And they said, when you fail, we're going to fire you, but we're going to give you the money to do it. He created the Fairchild Channel F, and it was the first video game cartridge and console that worked together. And very few of us know about this guy. And he was one of us. He was an independent gamer. He helped find the Homebrew Society, the Homebrew Club that's in San Francisco, which is considered the first independent gaming network. And he refused to go to any publisher and work on his own games. And he had some very interesting things he was working on. And, you know, since last week, we lost this guy, Prince. And he's probably the greatest artist of all time because Prince has a vault of music, and probably most of it probably is horrible. And horrible by his standards, that is, not by ours. But the point was that he took every room in his house and was able to record and build off of. And as game developers and game designers, everything you do is something you can build a game off of. So when I think about this, think about what Miyamoto was truly saying. He was saying, look at everything that you do in life and find the mechanics in it, find the systems. Like when you catch a bus to catch a train, what system's at play there? When you're playing a sport, when you're playing a game, when you're inviting your friends out for dinner, or you're cooking a dinner, what games are you playing? You know that one friend you always have, you have to tell them that the dinner's at 6, but it's really at 7:30 because you know they won't show up to 8 if you tell them it was at 6 anyway. You know, what kind of game is that? You know, what kind of dialogue system are you using there? You know, there's a lot of things that we do every day that can improve our game design. And sometimes when all of us have a tendency to focus in and hone in on the game that we're making, that we forget about the rest of the world. And fortunately, going into VR and AR, our whole thing is to look at the rest of the world and figure out how to make a game out of it. And unfortunately, I have a head start because I've always thought of games the way Miyamoto wanted us to. You take the mundane things in life and you make a game out of it that's fun. Like, if I told you what Tetris was before you ever played it, would you ever thought that game was fun? Let's be honest. Would anybody thought that game was fun? Or if I told you I have a little plumber character, I'm going to drop him in this world, he's going to go chase after this princess that's never at any of the castles, and all he does is eat shrooms and spit fireballs, would you think that game was fun? And he jumps. All he does is jump. He just jumps around everywhere. We won't think that, but somehow he figured out how to find the fun in all the mundane things in life. And as independent developers, that's our job. You have the privilege of not doing what a publisher wants, mainstream publisher wants us to do. And that's just to make money and please the general palate of the general population. You can make a message in your game. You can make your game fun. You can even make your game depressing. Nobody has that privilege but us. And we should take advantage of that. And that's my talk. Any questions at all? Yes.
Are you familiar with the works of Jane McGonigal?
Yes, I am.
Nice. I suspect.
Yes, I am familiar with the works of Jane McGonigal. Any other questions? I try to always leave space for questions. Yes.
What are the works of Jane McGonigal?
Jane's written a book. What's the name of her book where she breaks down all the games? I forgot. It's like she talks about football. What's that? She's done a lot of papers too. Yeah. I have yet to see one of Jane's games though. I haven't seen. Has anybody seen one of Jane's games that know Jane? Have you seen one of her games?
I don't think she's made any games yet.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know that she made the game after she suffered that concussion, but I'm not sure about video games.
She writes a lot. She does a lot of writing. She breaks down the mainstream games and why our gaming community is kind of broken in a lot of her papers. She's really good at writing because she knows. She's done some TED Talks too that are really inspiring. Like the mindset of the gamer, like how gamers actually find triumph in playing games, the gamer eye, that gaze we give into the screen, how we get entranced, and how dopamine releases in our brain every time we do something great, you know. And I think that has a lot to way we don't look at normal life as a game, like it is a game. Like the first time you hit that snooze button when you wake up, you just enter the time trial. Can I get out of the house at the same time I normally do? Because I got 15 less minutes. The first game we always play. Yep. Any other questions? Yes.
What's your game?
The game that I'm working on right now is called Homes. And the games I've worked on, everything that I placed on PlayStation 3, and I worked on Guitar Hero and Yifat Ninja Gaiden Z.
Thank you, Thad and Charles. We're going right into our next session, so if you had another one you wanted to go to, it's 1 o'clock. Check out your program. But our next session is Collaborative Governance in Game Arts with Izzy Coltis-Campbell from Games Making Games.
Yeah, me too. Actually, do you want to check out the back too?